All right, so today we are going to be starting on our clay project. We are going to make and break 4 different styles of clay pot. Now, as you're going through this demonstration, I want you to be thinking about the food or the functional pottery piece that you're going to make and how these techniques can lend themselves to helping you create that. First thing we're going to start with is a pinch pot. So you want to take your slab of clay, or maybe it's already in a sphere, and you want to turn it into a sphere. Now, the exciting thing is that if you put your hands like this, that automatically makes a sphere. But you got to put some force into it. Now, if I just slap it with a flat hand, it's going to flatten my clay piece out. So I want to make sure I keep my hands curved. Now, if your clay seems too dry, because elasticity is very important with clay, if your clay seems too dry, then you need to add more water. If it seems too wet, then you can use this canvas piece here to kind of soak some of the water out. But once you get to a sphere, this is the place to start. First thing we're going to try is the pinch pot. To start that, I'm going to pierce my thumb into the inside of it. Then I'm going to pinch and twist. Pinch and twist. Pinch and twist. What you will notice is that this is turning into a little bowl. Now, this would be good if you have, like, let's say a bowl of guacamole, or you have some type of bowl that you need to make for your functional pottery piece. I would spend some time making sure that the width of the walls are no wider or thinner than the width of my pinky. That's going to be really important. Pinch and twist. I can snag it down to try to flatten the lid out. I would make sure I'd want to come back in and smooth all of this out. So that's going to be our pinch pot. You can change the shape. This is good for cupcake bottoms, scoops of ice cream, all that kind of stuff. Once you get your pinch pot created, we're going to say bye to Felicia, and she's done. Now, anytime I wedge air into my piece, I need to wedge it out. So to do that, I'm going to be pushing it down and then rolling it back up. Pushing it down and then rolling it back up. It's called wedging. Get it back to that spherical form. Next thing that we're going to try is a coil pot. Now, to make a coil pot, you are going to rip off a little bit of clay. You're going to start by rolling it in your hands. Now, if the canvas is like holding you back, don't feel bad if you pull that off. We can wipe those tables down. For a coil, I want to push down and out, and I want to use this part of my hand so that I get a nice consistent coil. So I'm going to start that out by pushing down and out. This is creating like little noodle-like structures that I want to make sure are uniform in their shape. So I get it started, I push it down and out. And you'll notice that the coil is getting thinner and larger as I am doing this. Now again, if I feel my clay is drying out a little bit, I'm just gonna take a little sprinkle of water, sprinkle it on top. All right, got a good coil going. Now, one way that you can use this is to create a coil pot. So I would start my coils out at the bottom, kind of spinning it around. Now, anywhere where I attach 2 pieces of clay, I have to score, slip, and smooth every time. If I don't do this, my pieces will literally start falling apart as they're drying out or going in the kiln. So I'm going to scratch my coil up, that's score, scratch it up, slip, add a little bit of this goopy stuff. This is like the glue of the clay world. It's just water and glue. So I'm going to get a little bit of slip. Put that on there. And as I'm pushing this together, I would smooth it out. When you smooth something out, it should look like these 2 pieces of clay have never been separated. So you can kind of see there how I smoothed it out. So now I might start building up a little bit, making sure I score, slip, attach this, and then obviously smooth it once I get everything kind of built up. So I'm scoring and slipping. Oops, stuck to the table. That could happen. And then you would have something like a coil pot. And then we're gonna say goodbye to that one. Now remember, every time I put air into my clay piece, I need to wedge it out. And this, I'm wedging out a little bit of the moisture because I added that slip to it. And I don't want my clay to be sticky. It can get the sticky kind of texture if we don't wedge the clay out. All right. Now we can keep it in this form, but you can also take a slab from a cylinder. So here's how this works. You're gonna use, again, this part of your hand to slap it flat. Now this is not like taking out your aggression, although it kind of does. But every 3 or 4 times we smack it, we wanna flip it over. If we don't flip it over, then we're getting to the situation where we have this stuck to our table. Also, if I punch it like that, you can see there's like a huge indentation, and I want a consistent layer of clay. So I'm smack, 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 flip it over. Now, when we get to this point, a slab is a great way to create a lot of different things that we need to. I'm gonna use either my needle tool, which is super sharp, or you can also just use regular butter knife. And the first thing I'm gonna cut out of this slab is a piece of pizza, or maybe this is like a giant Dorito chip. Okay, so I've got that there. Now, in order to make this stand taller, let's say I wanna make like a piece of cake, then I'm gonna need to come in and I'm gonna need to make some walls. Now I want my walls to be squared off, and they should fit on top of there pretty seamlessly. That'll be my shorter side. Okay, now to attach these two things, what do I always need to do? Score, slip, and smooth. So I'm gonna score it, both pieces, slip, add the glue, and then stick this down and smooth it out. I'm gonna follow that same procedure for my other 2 sides. Now, this would work if you were building like a square piece, if you were building like a square pot. My functional pottery teammates would definitely work. You can also get basically any geometric shape you can create with this process. I'm gonna go through and smooth out those corners. Again, I wanna make it look like these pieces of clay were always together. So I'm smoothing it out. Once I get it done, I can flip it over. And then here I have like a piece of cake. Cut into the sides, make it look like there's like a middle piece of frosting. I can put some cherries on top, all that kind of stuff. So that's slab construction. Can make any geometric shape, an octagonal box, a square box, rectangular box, you name it. All right, now that we're done with that one, I'm gonna say bye-bye. And again, I have to wedge my clay to get that air out. Now, with the clay, you wanna have a good game plan going into it. I know today we're just practicing, but tomorrow, clay is kind of like a baby. The more I play with it, the more fussy it gets. So we wanna try to keep the fuss level low so we have our idea before we get working. All right, last one's gonna be hollow form construction. Now, this is for things that you're like, man, I can't think of a single way that I would make my clay piece based on the last 3 techniques we tried. So it's kind of our last go-to technique because it's a little more nerve-wracking, because if you get a wall that is thicker than your pinky, the likelihood of it exploding increases because the air bubbles that are within it are gonna try to escape. Now, we're gonna try a hollow form construction of a soda can. So we're gonna start by smashing our sphere into more of a cylinder. And I tap the edges every now and then. This would work for like chicken wings. You'd wanna clear them out. Now, if I put this in the kiln, this will explode. It gets up to 3,000 degrees. That would definitely explode because it's a solid piece of clay. So I'm gonna take my loop hook. I'm gonna come in I'm gonna start clearing this out. This is also maybe if you're doing any type of cup. Oops. Now, if that happens, gotta push it down and start over, but I'm gonna Martha Stewart this and say it didn't happen. Okay, so I'm careful with my loop hook as I'm pulling out that extra clay. My goal is to get to the pinky width on all sides of this thing. So I'm clearing it out. Okay, so now let's say I have it cleared all the way out. I could also use my needle tool or just a pencil to come on here, and maybe I'm gonna do a Pepsi design. So I can carve into this super easily. If you were making a bag, you would also want to take this approach, except for we would pinch it down here and kind of open the mouth this way. There, you see now I've just turned it into a bag. You can have your little Takis sticking out of it. All right, once you have these 4 techniques mastered, you should be able to make literally anything that you can see in this world. I know you got it. Nice job.